Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play StarTropics. Last time we started off Chapter 6, and now we're in How Do You Do Cola. That's a name. I actually don't get the point of this NPC because I guess he's like some sort of Nintendo Power representative. Boy, I have seen the same boat as yours. About a month ago, Dr. PJ's and DJ, Dr. Whatchamacallit was sailing your boat. Searching for a lost whatchamacallit, you know? Ah, generic old person. Hi, I'm the third oldest in all the islands, 177 years, but the second oldest... What? The second oldest was... I'm the second oldest in all the islands, 188 years? You are very much misinformed. Mind you, I guess communication between islands would only have to be through, at this point in time in history, only through carrier pigeons or very slow snail mail, so, Alert, alert, a signal detected. Dr. J's location is north 49, east 28. Subsea right to launch, all ahead full. A good portion of Chapter 6 is just getting to the dungeon that's within it. Basically, using the NavCom hints like that one we just got, we have to make our way towards Dr. J's location. And it's a bit of a maze to get there. Yeah, maze is the right one, it's not labyrinth. Labyrinth is getting to the center, if I recall correctly. We're trying to get to the end point. There are a lot of deep sea water tiles that you can go through, most of which just lead to dead ends, so you just have to know the right path. There are a few things to get along the way, however. The one I'm going after right now is just flavor text, but there is one you actually do want to go after in a few moments. And in here, there's a big apple. Okay, then. It's delicious, but nothing happens. It's not even a health restore. I do not get the purpose of that. I guess it's just there to be supposed to be, screw you then. And now we're north 25, east 59. If you can't tell, it's just block for block. But I think because of that, actually, this is the largest overworld chapter in the game. Because there are a lot of places you can go to, a lot of which are entirely pointless. But I like the exploration factor it has. Though, oddly enough, in some way, whenever I'm in a little labyrinth/maze area like this, first off, there's a big heart over here. Whenever I'm in an area like this, I'm reminded of this one part of Star Fox Adventures of all things. I remember, what was the name of the giant stone guy you could talk to warp you place? I think it was just called the Warp Stone. He had like a maze labyrinth area beneath him that you could enter for some extra scarabs, I think. And now it's north 13, east 53 of us. But yeah, that Warpstone dungeon I actually went through a lot as a kid, even though I never really found the quite goal of it, I suppose. I was frequently lost in it. Mind you, I was frequently lost in Star Fox Adventures as it was. Oh, hey, a house. Hello, person living here. Oh. Who was this? Initials RC. Rob Crusoe? Random time for a Robinson Crusoe reference. Let's just nod and leave. It looks like we're actually getting close to the location since it's 4 to the north and 29 to the east of us. However, we have to go through a few more detours to actually get to it. First off, there is a hidden passage right there you need to go through. And then there's these. Most of these pools of water lead into each other. This one on the second from the left there is the only one that actually leads to a place. Now I want to head south because anything to the north is a dead end or loops around. The bottom of these two tiles. And then just the one directly to the west of us. Now, one thing I'm surprised I haven't really mentioned at this point is that I really like the main sailing theme. It very slightly reminds me of the Wind Waker sailing theme, too. Captain, signal detected, north 20, east 11. When you're getting close to the actual location, NavCom will start talking to you without actually going into the main, bridge. Captain, signal detected, north 5, east 6. It's always in the same location, by the way. North 1, east 2. Captain, east 1. Captain, the signal has stopped. Let's dive. And I'm getting weird flashbacks to both Diamond and Pearl, as well as, Final Fantasy V. Either way, time for this area's dungeon, which, honestly, Chapter 6 has the hardest dungeons in the game. The later chapters are supposed to have harder ones, but I find these next two to be much harder. Random Incan statues, I think? starting off, the first dungeon of the two we're going to be accessing this part isn't too bad. In fact, it's the lesser of two evils by a long shot. The most I can give you for advice early on here is just keep your health as high as you can, because you're going to want as much health as possible. It's also here that we're introduced to this thing, the golden anklet. It turns us orange, and what does that do? It allows us to jump over 2 blocks instead of 1, which is incredibly useful. However, it is a power-up that only works in the room you get it, so now it's gone. Basically, it's just a new puzzle gimmick for you to slightly make things more interesting. I like their attempt there, but I feel like they could have done more like a permanent upgrade. In fact, I feel like this game could benefit a lot more from the general Zelda numbers, you know? More permanent upgrades, more weapon variety, so on and so forth. It's not a bad game even without those, but it feels like it gets a bit stale. However, with this golden anklet, we also get more platforming puzzles, which don't really change all too much, all things considered, actually. Mind you, with a game that is as limited as this, it's understandable. Although, actually, seeing Orange Mike reminds me of this. One thing I'll give StarTropics 1 over StarTropics 2, StarTropics 1 is a lot more visually interesting. Because Mike's sprite in StarTropics 2 still has the blue shirt, but all the brown's been replaced by black, and it just looks bland and bleak. And that's not very interesting to me. Mind you, StarTropics 2 on the whole I actually think is the much inferior game, but that in particular always bothered me. Oh boy, this room. There are a few ways you could go about this. You could either stay on the blue block and constantly jump and try to kill the zombies the mummies that way, be an idiot and try to jump on directly to the chest instead of going to the switch and then jumping to it in order to just hit any mummies that are within a north, south, east, west range of you. Or you could go the really dangerous route and have them all try to gang up on you at once, which these mummies are actually a bit more unique in the sense of they never try to track onto you. They'll always be going in their circular pattern. Well, they'll follow the path. It's not so much a circle. Which is interesting. And that's me screwing up. More hidden passages. I don't like that still, but we at least get a red potion. Mind you, that's only the second time the game has done it, so I'll give it credit for that. And that's a Nautilus. Okay, then. And time for a mid-boss. This guy is kind of like the octopus we faced back in like part 2 or so. Only we don't have a snowman to freeze him. In fact, like I said back then, the snowman only appears, as far as I can recall, in that stage. So in order to hit this guy, we need to let him charge towards us, so we can damage him, or you can head up here to this, to the upper 2 blocks, and try to attack it from there. Not a very hard boss, just watch your HP, because if I recall, those projectiles and fires can do some damage. We're not done with this dungeon yet, though. Honestly, that was more of a mid-boss than an actual boss. Which, odd that this game starts doing that now of all times. I would start introducing mid-bosses in stages, usually around the halfway point, but we're way past that at this point. Gee, I wonder where I'm supposed to go. But your actual answer is not through there. That's supposed to be a hint room. You're supposed to go through there to realize that there's a path to your absolute south and absolute north. The south is where the door button is. The north is where the golden anklet is, which allows us to jump down and turn on the lights from there. Which, Trixie Dixie, I like that. I do like how they try to throw some more interesting level design at you as you go through the game, though. Because that at least shows that there was an attempt at something else. And hey, the baseballs! I actually forgot those showed up this late in the game. And here's my favorite weapon in the game in terms of design. The cleats! You just teleport over to every enemy and do a crap load of damage to them. It's not instant kill like it seemed like it was there. It's more like it does roughly twice the damage of the shooting star, I believe it is. Which, you know, cool. Also, make sure you kill the Nautiluses in this room, because this is a room that requires you to kill every enemy in order to leave. The turrets are the main annoyance, though. Ah, crap. It's always really sad when you expect to throw a shooting star or a projectile weapon only to find you've been downgraded back to your original weapon, because you had so much hope, but then it's just so short-sighted. thankfully, there's always some hearts here. This dungeon actually does a good job in giving you health pickups when you need them, though. The whole game tends to try to do that, but it feels like it falls short on it in a few places. This is probably the dungeon that does it the best out of everything else. But you know, not everything can be the same like that. It's also around this point, if you haven't noticed, that dungeon lengths start increasing. Oh boy. Yeah, screw this, just use the cleats. I think the cleats also do a slight range of damage, because as you saw, I killed one mummy there much faster than the others, which means mummies either have a range of HP, like in the original Dragon Warrior, or they just does a slight range of damage. I would believe the latter more so than the former. With that, though, we are at the boss of this stage, which I recommend using the baseballs for. Because I'm getting weird Konami flashbacks. We're fighting a Moai head. This boss is constantly heading towards the southern end of the screen. If I recall, if he reaches out all the way to the bottom, it's an instant kill. His only attack other than touch damage, though, is those snakes that he's firing out. He'll leave himself open to attack while firing them, and if you dodge every snake, he will also leave his mouth open available for more damage. Basically, just keep an eye on your timing and mash B when you can. When his mouth's not open, though, he is entirely invulnerable to damage. It's kind of hard to actually fight this guy your first playthrough because you're learning the patterns, but honestly, he's not that bad despite being a fairly late game boss. And that's the end of that dungeon. And now we're in underground caves with really eerie music. Okay then. You know, I have to wonder, looking at the points though, I have to wonder what the highest maximum score you can physically get is by killing only the enemies that are required. There's probably like a max score walkthrough somewhere on like GameFAQs or something, but I don't got time for that. Either way, you could head through the passageway I just ignored. However, I want to head up here. Because as you'll see, there's a staircase. And that staircase is rather interesting. Because within it is a big heart. However, this big heart isn't like the others. There's another dungeon coming up, and if you enter it and then leave again, and you come back here, this heart respawns. So you can farm that heart to get the maximum amount of life containers, heart containers rather, that you can get in the game. Sadly, it's not permanent. Once you get to the next chapter, it'll revert to its proper number. But that can actually be pretty handy, because we're coming up on what I consider to be the hardest dungeon in the game. Not to say the ones afterwards aren't hard as well, but this next one's the most pain in the ass. You know, it's interesting though, because you might recall that one NPC mentioned that Dr. Jones basically made it through all this looking for some hidden underground ruins, which we certainly found because, if you didn't notice, the previous area looked a bit different from every other cave we've explored, and the fact that it had a unique tile set. But let's see. Whoa, that's a thing. What's this big rock? It looks like metal melted by some great heat. It has 3 holes where something used to be. Some strange ciphers inscribed here, but we can't read it. Now that looks mysterious and also foreign from this area, considering the fact that it doesn't look like anything else we've seen. But it's time for the hardest dungeon in the game. This is the point where you can actually leave, exit, exit, yeah, that's redundant. Exit, get that big heart, and just constantly get them until you have your max health. This is the hardest dungeon in the game, and if that's not obvious by the fact we have to go right immediately instead of go up the obvious entrance, well, this place is going to be a pain in the ass for you. There are a lot of high damage obstacles enemies in here, and honestly, I recommend on your first playthrough really taking your time and just trying not to be reckless, because this place sucks. But we also get my second favorite sub-weapon in the game, the dual shuriken. You throw it with the button, and then you press the button again when you want to split it into shurikens that go 2 other directions. They all do the same amount of damage, however, they do have a range of about 4 or 5 blocks, I believe. It's a really cool weapon. I like this a lot. It actually has some pretty interesting tactical use, too. Now, if only it showed up in more than maybe 1 or 2 dungeons in the game. Like I said earlier, the way I wish they had done the sub-weapons in this game, and the magical items as well, is introduce maybe one of either in every new dungeon, and then just have all the others available to you as you progress through. That would have been interesting, but eh. It also would have been kind of broken, now that I think about it as well, because then we'd have every sub-weapon by probably mid-Chapter 5. And God, having the cleats and the dual shurikens available for about half the game's dungeons, honestly, would be kind of ridiculous. Also, it's only now... first off, don't let these guys touch you. They do like 3 hearts of damage. That's not good. It's only now just hitting me that the reason that Chapter 3 is so long in dungeon heavy is because Chapter 4 didn't actually have a dungeon. Mind you, it also could be the inverse. The reason Chapter 4 didn't have a dungeon is because Chapter 3 was so long-winded. Also, don't jump north of here like you might think you have to. That leads to death. However, now I want to jump north through that passageway because it allows us to fall down here into a secret little upgrade area. And you want to come here because recovery items in this place are pretty sacred. Mind you, this room that we're in general is kind of like a weird break room. And more dual shurikens, that's useful, because you want to have a lot of these for the multiple boss fights that are in this area. In fact, you want it for every single one of them. And it's good timing, too, because the first of those boss fights is right through this door. We are fighting... Arahabaki? Okay, then. This is actually a really annoying boss without the dual shurikens, because the way he works is at the moment you're perpendicular to him in either of the 4 cardinal directions, he'll fire, and that firing does a lot. The dual shuriken is very useful because you can actually avoid getting hit because of that, though. So I recommend having a few. Plus, it does decent damage to him. Decent chunk of health and obviously decent damage, so you want to be a bit more careful with this fight, and I recommend just taking the patience route instead of being overly aggressive. Also, don't jump on the button that appears in that room afterwards. Why? That button causes a 1-up to spawn that subtracts a life from your total, which, no good. And while I liked how the game is actually adding in some new cave aesthetics this late into the game, I still would have liked more than one cave theme. Because if you're this late in the adventure, you really want to have some unique stuff. Also, these guys hurt. The way these guys work is that they'll start somewhere towards the other end of a room and head towards the opposite side. The moment they reach a wall, they'll spawn and do the projectile attack, which hurts, to put it bluntly. You want to take the patience route with that room as well, because you might want to, especially on your first playthrough, actually, because they hurt, to put it bluntly. Mind you, a lot of stuff in this game hurts, especially this late in the game, because it's NES hard, to put it bluntly. And now there's more of them, and they spawn multiple at once. Great. I actually die here quite frequently in my normal playthroughs, if I even go this far, that is, because it's just, look at the damage I just took. Ugh. That's also something I guess this game could have done with defense upgrades of some sort. Not much, like maybe decrease damage by 0.2 and another 0.2. Like, a total of 3/5 damage would have gone a long way in this game, honestly. And this guy, I think this is maybe one of the only 2 versions of this guy that shows up. He's not much of a threat, just don't let him touch you. Oh, hell no. Yeah, that's a trick room. They make you want to think you want to kill them, but no, you don't. Also, the gray, enemies that were in that room as well. I forgot to mention the first time they showed up in the room with the purple guys. But the way they work is that they're similar to the sparks, I think it was, in Zelda 1. And if they touch you, you can't use your yo-yo for a bit. So, don't get touched. Oh, hey, more Arahabakis. Great, just my favorite. I'm speeding this fight up just to save some time, because we've seen these guys before. Now there's 2 of them, which means double the points of damage. Great. Just great. Thankfully, they're not too hard. It's just the fact that there's a lot of potential damage in that room. And it goes dark here, but if you actually head left here, you can actually find a secret passageway, which leads to, I believe, 1 extra stock up of Ninja Star / Dual Shurikens. And you want these, because these are still useful against the boss fight. Boss fight for this dungeon, and the final one for Chapter 6, is dual statues. Okay, then. Best strategy, stand here and tank damage. Use a red potion if you have to. They should die at the exact same time if you time yourself right. That's it. And if you're taking a lot of unnecessary damage, just heal. It's the best advice I could give. It's an easy fight in concept, but execution can actually be a bit stressful. And that's that. That's also, I believe, the 3rd to last dungeon in the game done. Well, unique dungeon, that is. I'll get more into what I mean later. You know, we're deep in these lost ruins, but we still have yet to see a lick of Dr. Jones. Also, that's a giant pit. That was a plain statement, Kyle. I don't know why you said that. I also don't know why I'm talking in the third person. Well, maybe we'll find him eventually. Let's just continue on. Thankfully, there are no other dungeons in this area from this point on, though. Can it be? Have we finally found him?
Hey, Mike, it's me, Uncle Steve. You found me.
We stand speechless. He looks very much like our father.
Uncle?
Are you alright?
Yeah, I'm alright, but you're fantastic. I'm very proud of you, Mike. Let me tell you what happened. Listen carefully. A month ago, I found a big rock in these ruins. I think you know the one. I decoded the cipher. It told of an incredible story. On a faraway planet called Argonia, the Argonians battled evil aliens. The Argonians were all but destroyed. They sent their last escape pod to Earth. Mike, the rock you saw is the burned remains of said escape pod, and the pod was carrying 3 powerful magic cubes. They are very important. The evil aliens chased those magic cubes to Earth and abducted me to get at them. The story is complicated. You want me to repeat it? No, Deku Tree. The aliens forced me to reveal the location of the magic cubes. I'm ashamed. I was too weak and now they've taken them from the big rock. The magic cubes must have been sent to Earth for a reason. Mike, please get them back from the evil aliens.
We respond bravely. I will go to the alien spaceship and get them back.
Mike, leave me here. I'll be okay. Good luck.
Okay, thanks. Our entire goal was to rescue you, but I guess now we gotta save the world because we're 11-year-old in video games. That means we are the greatest hero of all time. Great. Also, that was a very smooth speaking, fast talk. That doesn't happen often around here anymore. Either way, upon heading north into these mountains, we finished Chapter 6 finally. Not my favorite. Chapter 7, Alien Spaceship. At last we have arrived at the spaceship. Find the 3 magic cubes. And upon immediately spawning, we're back in that road in the mountains. However, if you head south, you're actually going through an infinite loop. The moment you head north, though, the loop ends, and we'll be able to actually access the alien spaceship. But with that, I'm going to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 7, we're going alien hunting. See you guys then.